Welcome to the Wareham Conservation Commission meeting of November 16th, 2022. We have
Kwame Barty.
Denise Schultz.
Michael Mercier.
Ken Buckland.
Sandy Slavin.
Nicole Curto.
Jessica Parr.
Thank you. There are no minutes. There are minutes. They've not been reviewed. So that's on me. And I hope to get them done before our next meeting, which would be, what's our next meeting? 12 what? Anybody have a hint?
I have a calendar.
12/6.
6.
Thank you. 6 or 7. Anyway, I'll find it. I thought I had it. 12/7. Okay, first hearing, please.
Okay, notice of public hearing pursuant to provisions of Massachusetts Wetlands Protection Act, General Laws, Chapter 131, Section 40, and Wareham Wetlands Protection Bylaw, Division 6. A public hearing will be held in room 320, Wareham Multicultural Center, 48 Marion Road, Wareham, Mass, on Wednesday, November 16th, 2022, at 6:30 p.m. for a request of determination of applicability for George Kakadis. Kadakis, sorry. Kakadis, sorry, excuse me. The GAF Engineering, 266 Main Street, Wareham, Mass. 02571, to construct a garage located on the Assessors Map 2, Lot 170, 31 North Water Street, Wareham, Mass.
Thank you. And who's here representing this project?
Madam Chair, Bob Rogers with GAF Engineering on behalf of the applicant.
Thank you. Mr. Buckland, are there field notes to read?
Yes, there are. This is a project at 31 North Water Street. It also fronts on Cove Street and Sandalwood Lane. It's proposed as a two-bay garage with a 24 by 28-foot footprint with office space above. Top of the slab is at 11.5 feet with an AE zone floodplain at 14 feet. There are flood vents in the walls of the building to equalize the flooding pressure in the event of a flood. New gas, water, sewer, and electric utility connections are proposed. A paved full-width driveway apron off of Sandalwood Lane at the location of the existing driveway cut is proposed. Underground leaching chambers, Cultex for handling increased runoff are added to the plan. No drainage structures found in the street adjacent to the site. No point source or direct connection to the shoreline was found. The proposed construction does not meet zoning bylaw dimensional standards and will be required for zoning board of approval. The coastal resources are the coastal bank, which is at the edge of North Water Street and Cove Street. There's also Broad Cove with a shellfish bed management area number 2 identified in the November 1st, 2022 shellfish management plan of the town. We also have beach and land under ocean. The coastal floodplain, as I said, is a designation of a zone AE 14 over the entire property. On firm panel number 25023CO582K, effective date 2/5/2014.
Thank you. Bob, anything to add?
Yeah, just so, you mentioned a lot of different resource areas, but so on this property, it's only buffer zone to the coastal bank and land subject to coastal storm flowage. It's a very flat lot. I had staked 3 corners of the garage for anybody that did a drive-by.
Bob, do you have the plans?
Excuse me?
Can we have the plans?
I have some plans here.
Yes,
That's what I have.
yes, there's
Thank
5.
We don't have plans.
I'm sorry.
That's okay.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I'm so used to printing mine out that I don't know we didn't have big ones. One second.
Yeah, okay.
What are you looking at? Okay.
He uses his computer.
We have the roof infiltration for the garage, so I'd answer any questions that you have. We'd be requesting a negative determination 3 with notice to the office prior to the start of work.
Okay, questions? Kwame?
No, it looks like everything is pretty good on the plans. Are you just gonna be removing that
Street is
hedge
back here.
that's on that slab, all that other good stuff? Or-
Sure, yeah, the hedge, the existing concrete, that's where the R&D
Yeah.
on that bar, so remove and dispose, and then, coming back with the paved driveway, but it's where they park now.
Right, so that's already existing, the paved driveway, yeah.
Yep.
Yeah. Okay, yeah, that's all I have.
Denise,
On the side of the house, they had a bunch of Adirondack chairs, and it looked like there was parking also at the front of the house. Is that going to be paved, or is that staying as it is?
The only work that I'm aware of it, and the only work shown is what's shown on
It's
this
on here,
plan.
okay. Thank you.
Michael,
It looked like in the back there was some, it began to be staked under the trees or the tree area. Is that going to be impacted, or is it just a little further?
That, it's like we're showing 3 trees there, but it's one tree that's a triple.
All right.
Is that the one, what you're asking about?
Yeah, well, yeah, that, and it looked like the stakes were maybe underneath that, those trees, or maybe a little bit slightly
I'm-
south of what it would be here on the map.
Yeah, I paced it off myself. We didn't do it like with a survey crew or anything, just to visually show you where it was gonna be. And so, yeah, one stake was right in front of the Adirondack chairs, and then I just paced off roughly 28 feet and went to the front. So, it looks like for sure, part of those hedges, remove and dispose existing hedges as needed. So those hedges would be cut back just to accommodate the driveway. But we're, I know we have a gas line close to that tree. We're not, I don't know, I would think they would save that if they could. The only thing that could be a problem is the installation of the gas line.
All right. Okay, that's all. Thank you, sir.
Nicole,
No questions, thank you.
Jessica,
No questions.
the gas line will go under the new garage?
Excuse me?
The gas line will go under the new garage, or the new garage will be built over the gas line?
It's going around it, and if you look at the top view, so we have connect to existing in the driveway, and then we're going around the garage.
Existing gas line to be relocated. I don't think it's
Proposed
planned, is there?
proposed relocated gas services labeled inside the garage.
Okay. And question for you, the two-bay garage will be accessed off of Sandalwood, but I'm not seeing the driveway indicated on the plan. I can see an existing gravel driveway, but it doesn't go into either bay.
So there's, it's 2 site plans showing, the garage and the existing conditions, and then the garage and the proposed paved driveway is up above.
I got it.
Here.
I didn't look at the top.
Yeah,
Okay.
and it's, it could be clearer, for sure, but
And
everything...
they want a paved driveway, they're not considering anything else.
That's what they asked us to provide. Right now, they have a combination of a gravel driveway and the cement concrete slab.
And those slabs are being removed, right?
Correct. And then if you consider the full infiltration of the roof of the garage, I think that would more than make up for the paved driveway.
And I do thank you for putting in the dry wells for the runoff of the roof. Well, you don't call them dry, you called them something else.
Well, they're
Underground
chambers.
infiltration system, but I thank you for considering the runoff of the new garage. And it will only be for office. It's not intended to be a living quarters, is that correct?
That's correct. I'm close to making that submission to the Zoning Board of Appeals where that, would be.
Okay. Because if in fact it will be a living there, you don't have sewer for it.
Correct. That's correct.
Because if it becomes a living place, then you've increased your sewer output, and that requires the waiting for the moratorium to be lifted. But if it's going to stay an office, then you're fine with sewer capacity. Okay, is there anybody in the audience who'd like to speak for this project? I'm seeing none.
Move to close the hearing.
I have a motion and a second to close the hearing. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, abstained, the hearing is closed.
Move to accept the project with a negative number 3.
Second?
I have a motion and a second for -3. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, abstained.
Thank you.
Again, no work until you get the paperwork from the Conservation Office.
And the ZBA approval.
Well, of course, ZBA.
Yep,
I'm
that's
not-
going to take longer.
Okay. Into continued hearings, we have a continued hearing for Salvador and Carol, oh God.
Santo Lucido?
Say it slower for me.
Santo Lucido,
Thank you, Santo Lucido.
just as it's spelled, absolutely.
Well, I'm not good at that. Okay, so we have a 8 Graceland, and who's here representing this project?
Bob Rogers, GAF Engineering, Madam Chair, on behalf of the applicant.
Thank you. New plans?
One is fine for us. Yeah, thank you.
Yes, just the mic. So I had emailed these plans to the office, I think a couple of days ago, but in David's absence, I didn't think it would save any time if I dropped them off to the office. I thought I would bring them this evening, and I also copied DEP.
Okay, thank you, because I had not seen them.
So I have a question for you, Madam Chair. I reached out to, so there were 2 things that we agreed that we would come back with after the first public hearing. We were interested in getting the opinion of the Harbor Master, Gary Buckminster, regarding the location of the proposed pier. And you had asked us, there's a patch of eelgrass that was located by Brad Holmes ECR. You asked us to put that on the plans, and we did. That's basically the revision. We put the 50-square-foot patch on the plan, and then we rotated the pier to the north
Okay,
so that we would avoid that patch of eelgrass.
the eelgrass and its associated scallops, thank you. Mr. Buckland, do you have any field notes to read on this project?
Nothing new, no.
Can you read the old ones, please? Do you have them?
A site inspection was made at 8 Grace Lane. The project involves the construction of a pier, ramp, and float system with an attached boat lift inland under the ocean, inland containing shellfish, partially on a coastal beach and within a coastal flood zone. A 210-foot overall length pier, ramp, and float system, but 195 foot from mean high water is proposed out into Buzzards Bay. Approximately 33 12-inch green heart piles are proposed to construct the structure. Piles will be driven from a floating barge. The proposed float would be 12 by 20 foot in size. An eelgrass survey was done indicating there's a patch of eelgrass in the vicinity of the proposed structure. Comments from the Mass DMF have been received. They note shellfish habitat in the area and further state that the project will result in the permanent loss of shellfish habitat. They state that the area will likely be inaccessible to commercial and recreational fisheries. They also comment on the eelgrass and state that the barges and boats should avoid anchoring or staging in eelgrass beds during construction when not in use. Comments have not been received from the harbor master. What is the distance from the structure to the identified eelgrass? A DEP file number has been received. Recommended continuance for comments from the harbor master and for info on the distance to the eelgrass.
We now have the indication of this eelgrass in association to the pier and the relocating of float. I am disappointed there's nothing from the harbor master. Will you please send him another reminder that we're asking for comments on this project? It was 2 weeks ago, and I don't think we have them.
Just a point of information, I emailed him back on November 7th. Another thing I just want to point out is that what I also provided you with is the a DEP map of eelgrass, seagrass, which covers the years 1995 to 2022. And, you know, you have strong language in the bylaw for protection of eelgrass beds.
Yes.
And this is an eelgrass patch in a patch of seaweed. And so what this map is showing is that the Wareham side of Cremisa Point, if you will, or, you know, that northeast side of Cremisa Point has never been a suitable area to sustain eelgrass beds. And, but we are taking the responsible approach of avoiding this patch. There are moorings in this area. Mr. Santalucido has a mooring with a haul line. So there is active boating within the neighborhood. And I think there's enough water out here. We're not going to shade this patch, you know, the piers on the north side. So we're not going to do anything to harm it, but it doesn't rise to the level of an eelgrass bed that would be significant to all of those interests which Division of Marine Fisheries was so kind to point out.
Thank you. Did you have any other comment on this, or? All right, questions on the board? Kwame?
No questions, thank you.
Michael?
No questions, thank you.
Denise?
I guess, should I point out the bylaws that this violates?
Yep. We'll put it in the record, please.
The cumulative impact of the construction, maintenance, and use. Docks and piers, when placed in land containing shellfish, have an adverse impact on the resource area value of the aquaculture. Floats interfere with harvesting. Docks have adverse impact on recreation by interfering with recreational boating activities. Also adverse impact to aesthetics of the area. Location of any designated shellfish grant relay areas or designated recreational shellfish within 100 feet. And number 8 is no part of a dock or pier float system shall be constructed above or within 50 feet of an eelgrass bed.
Correct, and we don't have an eelgrass
Call
bed.
it a patch.
It is, it
Okay,
is.
but it's eelgrass and it's there.
And I would point out, Madam Chair, that that is the preamble to coastal structures, and everything that follows are the construction standards for these coastal structures, which, if you follow them, you're mitigating those concerns, and there's an expectation that you should be approved.
If it's-
Because we're not shading the eelgrass.
But you're also
and
making it inaccessible to the public and commercial
No,
shellfishing. That
I
according
disagree.
to what the Marine and Fisheries has said.
for the direct area underneath this pier.
Right.
For the
Yes.
area that's a 12-inch pile. The piles are spaced in accordance with the bylaw. All the construction is in accordance with the bylaw. And I think, you know, it would be a lot different if you had the same preamble, and therefore there shall be, you know, no residential piers or a certain density or something.
I just feel that
You know, I think it's extremely arbitrary to approve 2 piers right in the neighborhood, his friends, his neighbors, and then say, now we have reached the point of a cumulative effect that rises to denial. I would hope that the majority of the commission would agree with us, and if not, then give us an opportunity to provide more information from Brad Holmes or to go back to Division of Marine Fisheries. But, I mean, it's arbitrary to say
It
that.
does say land containing shellfish is deemed significant to the interest of the wetland bylaw, and this does contain shellfish. I don't believe the other 2 piers had the same comments.
Well,
But I would
the
like to
other-
hear from Mr. Buckminster.
As would we. There's just as many shellfish on Mr. Paroli's property. There's just as many shellfish in front of Mr. Barbosa's property.
But that wasn't the findings of,
There wasn't a patch of eelgrass.
Or
it also wasn't the findings in the shellfish area also. his area supposedly has a concern to the division of.
Well, I think they really just put standard language as if there was a bed of eelgrass out here. There's not even more than the one patch. There's not 5 patches. You know, you go back to Brad's report, he covered the whole area, and he found this one little spot in seaweed.
It's eelgrass and it exists.
So we're happy to ask her for a continuance to receive the opinion of Mr. Buckminster.
Yes, I was going to. We really have asked, we do want our Natural Resources Department to speak to this particular project as he has the other two. I'm going to pull up the other 2 projects and take a look at the finding of the Division of Marine Fisheries on those 2 sites and compare it against this particular letter.
We'll do that as well.
November 1st.
That was,
Because I
Bill
wanna
took
make
care of
sure-
that,
you're
so
right. We approved an extension of one and a creation of a second, and I want to make sure that the words they used are how they compare to the words being used in this November 1st document.
we'll do the same.
Okay.
Thank you.
Is there anybody in the audience who would like to speak for this project? I see none. We'll continue until December 7.
7th.
I need a motion to continue.
Motion to continue to December 7th.
Second?
I have a motion and second. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, abstained. 500.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Sandy, did you say December 7th?
December 7th, yes. And here's your documents. That one? Next hearing is Robert McDuffie, 0 Station Street. Somebody here to represent that project?
Good evening, Brad Bertolo, JC Engineering.
Evening.
I have a set of revised plans I'd like to pass out.
What were we waiting for? A revised plan?
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Brad.
Mr. Buckland, can you read the field notes, please?
A site inspection was made at 0 Station Street. This NOI application is being filed to both address a violation and to propose a single-family dwelling in the buffer zone to the BVW at this location. Alterations to vegetation and placing fill in the buffer zone to wetlands were done at the site with no approval for such work. And an EO was issued to address the problem, and this notice of intent was submitted to address the problem and to propose the construction of a single-family dwelling. An area where fill was pushed into the 30-foot no-activity zone shall be removed and the area restored according to the buffer zone restoration plan found on the site plan. This will involve removing the fill material to the natural slope and then planting with low bush blueberry and sweet pepper bush plants. Also proposes to construct a single-family dwelling, garage, and in-ground pool in the buffer zone to the BVW. A 42-foot by 65-foot dwelling with the attached 24 by 38-foot garage is proposed approximately 54 feet from the edge of the wetland. Roof runoff will be directed into infiltration structures. A 16 by 28 in-ground pool and patio with associated retaining wall will be approximately 33 feet from the edge of the wetland. There are several retaining walls proposed on the site, one of which is on the edge of the 30-foot no-activity zone on the south side of the driveway and garage. This will be 2 to 4 feet in height along its length. The proposed driveways are to be paved. The entrance driveway drains into the leaching chamber, but the rest of the driveway and the area in front of the garage drains towards the wetlands. Recommend some infiltration for this area, as this is a large area of pavement drain towards a steep slope. There are significant grade changes proposed. Recommend minimizing creating additional steep slopes on the edge of the 30-foot no-activity zone, as these may be difficult to stabilize. Will the existing retaining walls along the edge of the driveway be reconstructed? Hay bales and silt fence will be installed between the work and the BVW along the 30-foot no-activity zone line. A DEP file number has been received. Recommend a continuation for plan revisions.
Thank you. Brad, we have a plan revision. Can you
Yes,
lead
I'll
us through the changes, please?
briefly go through it. Just as a answer to Dave's original comment, we're not proposing any changes to the original approved retaining wall that's along the southern side of the entrance driveway. There's no changes to that. We did adjust the, I guess, the grading is pretty much the same as original. I added additional spot grades along the edge of the driveway. I also added a berm along both sides of the driveway to help direct runoff to the infiltration structures that are located halfway down the main entrance drive. I also added a secondary catch basin and drainage structures at the end of the driveway down by the garage. That'll capture the runoff that's headed, directed southerly. The driveway sits atop of a kind of proposed to be kind of at the top of the hill, so some of the runoff drains northerly, some of the runoff drains southerly. Everything that's drained southerly towards the wetlands is being captured and infiltrated, and that should address the issues with surface water runoff off the driveway. Again, I think the original comments had some steep slopes towards near the 30-foot buffer. Wherever it was going to be too steep of a slope, retaining wall was proposed. The only other minor grading that's within close proximity to the 30-foot is an area just west of the pool. Just roughly a couple feet of fill to kind of semi-level off the area to the northwest of the house. That is a walkout area that grades about 7 feet lower than the remaining grade around the house. And that's just going to be typical loam and seed. Slopes are drawn at a typical 3-to-1, which is capable of being stabilized by loam and seed. If the commission has any other questions on the project, I'd be happy to answer.
Thank you. For the record, Carol has arrived at 7:55, and we need to get you a microphone.
6:55.
Oh, sorry. Thank you. Thank you for the changes. Questions? Kwame?
No questions right now, thank you.
Denise?
If I'm looking at this right, part of the driveway enters the 30-foot wetland offset?
That was a previous approval, yes. So as a reminder, this property had original approval to construct a driveway
Okay.
in-house on the property. It goes back to 2005. The driveway was cut in, the retaining wall was built. The site was cleared for some of it. Again, some of the violation that took place was some additional stockpiling was made, and the piles encroached into the 30-foot buffer that's all past the main driveway. So, yes, there are portions of the driveway that are within the 30-foot, but that's all based off of previous approval to gain access to the rear. Nothing's being constructed in the wetland.
Okay. And the proposed driveway is completely impervious, correct?
Paved, yes.
Thank you.
Michael?
No questions, thank you.
Nicole?
No questions, thank you.
Jessica?
No questions.
I have only one extra copy if she wants to look at it, but I need it back.
Oh, no. I was
She was looking for an agenda.
just a copy of the agenda for the night.
I don't have a,
That's okay. Thank you very much.
is there anybody here to comment on this particular project? I don't remember hearing any additional conditions for a standard order of conditions.
I think, weren't we talking about some type of barrier to, between, or to note where the wetland, the 30-foot wetland is over by that pool area?
They have
hay
there's a
balance
big,
there.
they're putting in a big,
I don't know, a permanent, something permanent.
sorry, they're putting in some, where it
Yeah,
is.
putting a retaining wall in that area
A
to act
retaining
as a...
wall.
Yeah,
So there's a retaining wall on either side of the house. That's the orange shaded area.
Okay, I see.
So, yeah. So the retaining wall is on both sides where it is extremely steep, close to the house. Is that answering your
I
question?
was concerned with the area over by the pool. I didn't know.
And
what
that's
was
the
going on.
retaining wall.
Another retaining wall over there.
Yes.
Thank you.
Okay. Anything else? So I'm hearing nothing, no change to a standard order of conditions. Anybody in the audience would like to speak to this project? I see none.
Move to close the hearing.
I have a motion
Second.
and a second to close the hearing. All in favor? Aye. Opposed, abstained. The hearing is closed.
Move to accept the project with a standard order of conditions.
Second.
I have a motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, abstained. We can bring our paperwork up.
You have the paperwork?
You have 2 maps, we got another one coming.
Should we sign something from the RDA earlier?
Yeah, you probably should if you made
Yeah,
the
if we-
decision.
Yep.
This is two different projects, right?
Okay, here's that.
thank you very much.
Thank you, and of course, nothing gets started until you get the wait.
The project
I was gonna say paperwork from Dave, but when you get the paperwork from the conservation,
From
Don't
Dave.
wait for it from, don't wait for it from Dave.
That's a hard habit to break.
Okay, yeah.
Okay.
Carol, do you sign this?
You on this?
No, I don't sign it, right? I didn't vote.
well,
I wasn't here for it, so.
okay. Pass
Correct.
that to Mike for his signature, and I think we need to recover the signature page for the RDA. That way we don't have to come in and sign. While we're looking for that, the next item on the agenda is a discussion, motion, and vote on Wareham MA3 LLC. The hearing is closed. There is no discussion other than among commissioners. You all got a copy of the notes from Mr. Bichette, correct?
Yes.
Not finding it?
Not finding a signature page, no.
While he's looking, since we have closed the hearing and we'll make our decision tonight, I just want to pull up a document I have regarding attendance. I have the dates of which we had hearings. We had a hearing on June 2nd, 2021. Carol and Nicole were not there. Carol, you've indicated you've done a missed meetings certification for that meeting?
Yes.
You probably haven't, have you? No. You've missed, okay. We had another hearing on 10/20/21. The only one missing was Nicole. We had another hearing on 6/1/22. We were all here. We had a hearing on 7/20/22. We were all here. Hearing on 8/3/22. We were all Kwame was not here for that one, and I understand you've completed a missing certification of compliance?
Yes.
I don't need that.
Somebody over there needs to.
No, they've done it. We had no discussion on 8/17, no discussion on 9/7, no discussion on 9/21. We had a hearing on 10/5/22, of which we were all here. No discussions on 10/19. On 11/2, we closed the hearing, and 11/2, right? And we were all here, so I have confirmed that, except for Nicole, all of our commissioners have either attended the hearings or signed a missed meeting certification, so that we are good to act on this particular decision. All right?
I don't see a signature page in here.
Okay, so we will let you know when we need a signature page for that one on North Water Street. Okay. So this is discussion. You have the document from Mr. Bichette. Is there anything you would like to talk about this? Or you want to take it, I'm sure Denise has gone over this in great detail. Is there anything you'd like to see? This is still subject to discussion and a modification.
I think I had added most of the stuff at the last meeting, but in reference to the commission, all right, let me just get the section right. Section 567.2 states that the commission is empowered to deny a permit for failure to meet the requirements of this bylaw, for failure to submit necessary information, which obviously does not apply here. ... For failure to avoid or prevent unacceptable, significant, or cumulative impact upon a resource area values protected by this bylaw, and where no conditions are adequate to protect those values. I think what we were talking about in reference to that was the water coming off and being diverted and
Yes.
not being able to enter the areas that it has previously entered, and therefore down the line ends up affecting not only the wetlands, but the Wewianick.
And that's what he's done in his initial summary
Correct.
about it, and then he goes in and specifically lists the articles and sections that deal with this
Correct.
particular project. There is, to me, a summary on the last page that's bolded. I believe it summarizes everything we have here. This whole document will be attached to our order of conditions and be delivered as such, but I'd like to read that last section into the record. Okay. We have not voted on this yet, but I'm going to read what it says. The Conservation Commission denies this project under the sections noted above, and for the reasons mentioned, as it found that the project would result in an adverse and cumulative impact to bordering vegetated wetlands and would have an adverse cumulative impact on resource area values protected under this bylaw, including groundwater, water quality, water pollution control, wildlife habitat, and aesthetics. The town wetlands protective bylaw was specifically designed and intended to prevent cumulative adverse impacts from individual projects and the cumulative adverse impacts that would result from multiple projects of a similar nature over time. The cumulative impacts would be sufficient and cannot be permitted to occur under the Wareham Wetland Protective Bylaw. That is the summary of the 4 pages that we have received. Is there any discussion before we make a motion and vote? Kwame?
None.
Denise?
Did they include in that also the adverse effect to remaining vegetation from Mr. Rowley's letter concerning the trees?
It was mentioned regarding the clear cutting of the 18 acres. That
Okay,
was covered
thank
in
you.
the summary, and the resulting degeneration of the water quality treatment for the runoff, et cetera. So it did reference the Horace Whitney Group report.
Okay, because he also speaks about the white pines are subject to damage from wind, rain, and exposure within the existing stand.
I don't remember seeing the white pines discussed in here, but we talked about it just being, the whole idea of everything being removed is not good.
Okay, all right, as long as it's
Michael.
in there.
I'm all set, thank you.
Nicole?
No questions, thank you.
Carol?
Nothing to add.
Jessica?
Nothing to add.
I think Mr. Bichette has written it well for us, and I think this becomes a basis for a motion. So would someone like to take a snap at the motion?
Motion to deny the project based on the findings in, how would I reference that?
Mr. Bichette's summary?
Mr. Passet's cumulative summary of the project and its adverse effects.
Thank you. I have a motion to deny.
Second.
I have a second. All in favor? I'm going to ask you to one at a time. Kwame?
Aye.
Denise?
Aye.
Michael?
Aye.
Carol?
Aye.
Nicole?
Aye.
Abstain. You abstain.
Abstain.
Thank you. Because you missed so many of the
Oh,
early meetings.
okay.
And Sandy Slavin, aye. So we have a 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 0, 1 vote to deny the project. And we have until Wednesday to get the paperwork submitted. Mr. Bichette has given me a draft of the order of conditions showing the denial. This letter will be attached to it, and I will forward that to Mr. Buckland to fill in the pieces he needs to fill in, like the date he's submitting it, and a confirmation that we have the date of the last plan.
Madam Chair, when is our 21 days?
Wednesday,
This
is coming Wednesday.
coming Wednesday.
Town hall is closed, so you're gonna have to get in before then.
Right.
The Tuesday is the last day.
Okay, so then you know it's got to be filed by that date.
That's right.
You know it's got to be filed by that
Mr.
date.
Buckland, do you have any questions on what we just did and what we need to do?
No, I don't.
Okay. We have some, that is done. We'll wait for the paperwork to come to us opposing the denial. Okay, there are,
Sign it now.
yes, let's sign it now. There you go. And now I'm going to bypass you. And Carol? All right? No. We'll wait to see what happens with the planning board. Ken, you wanted to talk about some superseding order of conditions? I think we just got a rash of them in.
Yeah.
And I
two-
believe I copied everybody on them as they came in.
Two superseding orders of conditions were issued by the DEP for 2707 on Shell Lane, Lot 1032B, and 2642 9 Lydia's Island Road. There was also a request for a superseding order on 42 Robinwood Road, 2758 The Pier, I believe is that project.
Yeah, RESC, I think it is, yeah.
And 22 Barnes Street, Centola, a superseding determination of applicability was requested as of this month. There's a tomorrow at 10 a.m., there's a meeting on site by the DEP for a review of the site, if you want to attend.
You remember this was the house that was between two particular streets down in Swiss Beach, and their neighbor complained that their property, they raised their property, making their property turn into swampy puddles when it rains because of the differences in the heights of the property. So 10 o'clock tomorrow. Anybody would like to attend? Is there anything else?
Yes, there is. As much as I like to sit here with you, I think you could probably be better served by somebody that has more of a background in Massachusetts wetlands regulations. We're trying to hire an agent at this time, but in the meantime, and possibly as a long-term solution, we have another option, and I wanted to introduce that to you tonight. Under 53, Chapter 44, 53G of the state law, we're allowed to hire consultants to do reviews of permit applications that come before the Planning Board, the Zoning Board of Appeals, and the Conservation Commission. And the applicant pays for the review. So what we have is somebody that can do that, has been doing it elsewhere around the state. And I'd like to introduce him and have him to give you a little bit of a background on what's involved, so you get an idea of how they may, maybe we can have a process that gets you the professional review that you need to complete the permits that you're responsible for.
Thank you. Please come up and introduce yourself.
Thank you, Madam Chair.
And,
Good evening.
Good evening.
My name is Brandon Fenoff, and my company is called Ecosystem Solutions.
I'm sorry, could you spell your last name, please?
Sure, it's F as in Frank, A, N as in Nancy, E, U, F as in Frank.
Okay, thank you.
Ken originally reached out to me as someone to fill the gap after David left and before you hired a full-time agent, which I am perfectly willing to help out with if you'll have me. But also, while I was at it, I thought that I would introduce Ken and the commission to a different way of thinking about your conservation agent, which is something that I've been doing for 2 municipalities in the Commonwealth. But I'll get to that in a minute. You might want to know a little bit about me and my company to begin with. Educational background, I'm a UMass Amherst graduate twice because I'm a glutton for punishment. I got my bachelor's degree there in wildlife biology, because that was my first love. And then I decided that I was never going to be the crocodile hunter. So I decided to go into this new thing called wetlands, because I could probably find a good job locally in the state. So I decided to do that, and I entered the graduate program in wetlands conservation at UMass, which was a new thing at the time. Received my master's degree in that, wetlands conservation, and I immediately left the state and went to Rhode Island because I was offered a job right away with their Department of Environmental Management, which is the corollary to the DEP. And I worked as a wetlands analyst for them for 5 years, and I had a couple of other jobs too in water quality. So I did a little bit of shellfish protection as well, covering for, when they had someone, they had left or moved. So I got the umbrella of wetlands protection and water quality protection as well. But after 5 years, I decided that a lifelong job in state service wasn't for me, and I decided to go into private practice. That was It'll be 20 years next year that I've been in private practice. So I've been doing this total, this year, 24 years. Wetlands, full-time, the first 5 years in Rhode Island, and 19 years now in both states. Okay, and a little bit of dabbling in Connecticut. In 2008, I was approached by the chairman of the Sutton Conservation Commission, who said that they were looking for someone to offer them something called a continuing services contract. Someone who had some deeper level of expertise with the Wetlands Protection Act and wetland scientists, which they really needed. So they had an RFP, or an RFS, Request for Services, which I ended up winning that contract, and I've been working for Sutton, doing all of their reviews, cradle to grave, from when the application comes in to the time a certificate of compliance is issued, because their bylaw, the way they have 53G written into the bylaw, it allows for that. And I'm still working for them. They seem to like me. In 2021, I was approached by the town of Mattapoisett and went through the same process, and I've been working for the town of Mattapoisett since September of 21, so a little over a year. And it's been the same kind of thing, except that the way 53G is written into their bylaw, or they don't have a bylaw, but without the bylaw, the way that works is that I'm able to get paid through that 53G process through the issuance of an order of conditions, determination of applicability, ORAD, et cetera, et cetera. So that's been working out well, too. And then I heard from Ken, and I thought that I would bring that to the commission's attention as well here, to see if you have any interest at all in trying that route. At the same time, we do on-call, as-needed reviews for different towns. We do a lot of work in Middleborough, mostly large-scale ANRADs, when they got like 5 miles of wetland line that needs to be reviewed. Some more complicated NOIs. And there are other towns we work into: Blackstone, Rehoboth, done peer reviews in Westport, for Dartmouth. Taunton is another town. So they call me up as it's needed. I also have private clients, but I don't have private clients in this region, which I think makes it a good fit too. One of the critiques people have is like, well, you're not from around here. And I said, that's actually a good thing, because I don't have any encumbrances. I don't owe anybody anything. And as a private consulting firm, I think that we offer perhaps a little more than the average bear, in that I have multiple biologists on staff. I have me, and I have 2 other wetland scientists on staff that can fill in if I get sick or if I'm on vacation. So you have constant service. I also work, private sector hours. I'm usually in at 8 o'clock in the morning. I rarely leave before 8 o'clock at night. So I'm basically always on call. We offer GIS services. We use ArcView GIS, so we have all the capabilities of GIS, including georeferencing site plans on aerial photographs. And if there are old site plans, like for example, if there's a certificate of compliance, they have an as-built plan, I can overlay them on whatever background you want, whatever year, aerial photography, USGS, NOAA map, et cetera, et cetera. Again, I'm a wildlife biologist. We also have a wildlife biologist on staff who is a endangered shorebird specialist, so piping plover, least tern, American oyster catcher. So he does that work for us as well, doing inspections during the nesting season. I sent this package to you. I see you rifling through it. I'm sure there's been something that I've missed. I have references. I also, the way that I propose working this financially business end is through a consultant fee schedule, because it gets the ball rolling very fast. So, and I worked this out in Sutton a long time ago, and I introduced it to Mattapoisett, and it's been working well. But basically, it depends on what kind of application that you have. The more simple the application, the less money you have to pay. The more complicated, obviously, the larger scale, the more you have to pay. And it's based on the different categories and notices of intent. You know, is it category 1, category 2, category 3? Is it a single-family house addition, or is it a full-blown subdivision with you know, roadway construction and stormwater going on, right? And what would happen is that would be advertised on the website or however, and when the applicant submits their application and their fees, the fee, they would calculate the fee, and that would be put into the individual 53G account, which we would then draw off of. At the time a determination or order is issued, then whatever money is left in that account, and it's almost always, the only time when it doesn't happen is usually when you have a bad engineer. You know who they are. I won't say who they are. I don't even know who they are because I don't work in this area. Or you have someone, you know, trying to do design by commission, where they come in, they don't know anything, then they get feedback, and then they come back with something that I see you laughing already, you know. So there's usually a refund at the end. I'm a professional wetland scientist. I'm a soil evaluator, licensed soil evaluator in Rhode Island. My 2 other biologists are also licensed soil evaluators, so not only do we have expertise in botany, we also have expertise in soil science as well. We have, you know, I'm a wildlife biologist. I have another wildlife biologist on staff as well to review, you know, wildlife habitat evaluations, Appendix A, Appendix B. I'm also a certified professional erosion and sediment control. You've heard of the SWIPs, stormwater pollution prevention plans, and you have to do, you know, your inspections for that. I have expertise in the background to know what it needs to be done and how it needs to be followed. I was the chair of the International Erosion Control Association's, I think, 2013 annual meeting, because I'm a member of that group. Again, certified wildlife biologist with the Wildlife Society, which is a national certification. I have the New England Regional Soil Science certification from UMass, and I'm a member of SNE.
Never heard of that one.
The Society of Soil Scientists of Southern New England. You actually need that certification if you are going to be able to do delineations in Connecticut, because they do delineations by soil only. They don't take vegetation into account because they think soils is more accurate. So, here's your useless information for the day. I added some materials that Mattapoisett required in their RFS, like certification and non-collusion, the fact that I pay my taxes, you know, not that it's all that important, but just so you know, my resume and my 2 biologists, Bruce and Greg, who are well-versed in Wetlands Protection Act as well, their resumes are in the package, and I have a number of letter of recommendations, including from the Massachusetts Association of Conservation Commissions, see Town of Rehoboth, Town of Sutton, and City of Taunton. They're getting a little old, but, and I had some there too that, for example, I also have extensive experience dealing with enforcement orders, and especially enforcement orders that go all the way, as in it gets in the court system.
We have several of those. Now, Ken, are we looking for a contract for a particular period of time?
No, I think at this point, it would be a test case, and we'd do it to fill in before we hire a conservation agent, if we hire a conservation agent.
Can we expect the same level of support that we've been used to? I mean, we expect our agent to visit the site, provide field notes and his recommendations for the project, and be here with us during our meeting. And all the paper, once we have approved a project, complete all the proper paperwork and deliver them to an RDA or an order of conditions or denial and stuff like that. So would that be an issue if,
That is standard operating procedure.
okay, I just want,
And I want to add, too, that I have a particular way of doing orders of conditions that I would need your permission for, if hired. I like to have, at the beginning, something called the findings of fact. I don't know if Dave ever did that.
he gives us field notes, which what he's found when he's gone out there.
You get those as well, but there are different sections of the findings of fact. And I find it very useful because it helps you remember down the line what went on. So there's a section where it explains who the applicant was, who the representative was, when the application was received, when the public hearing was open, when it was closed, what were the dates of any hearings in between.
So that's something after the fact that goes in the file in case...
It goes into the order, into the special conditions. It's like the cover page to
Okay.
the standard conditions. You know, it tells you what the vote was, how, you know, you had one, just was 501. You know, explain that. Then you go into the background. Is there any particular interesting background associated with this lot and this application? Is there history? Description of the property, description of the project and what the potential impacts are and why the commission was either okay with it or not okay with it. Then you get into the standard conditions. So 10 years down the line, when everyone on this board has retired or moved away, and there's a whole new board that knows nothing about it, and the situation comes up, you can go back to this, and it's clear as day.
Have you looked at our standard order of conditions,
I have not yet, I haven't had the opportunity.
our bylaws?
I have rifled through the bylaw. It's pretty standard, I would say. Yeah, it's
Except for the
well-written.
30 and 50-foot setbacks.
I know about those, yes.
Any issues with doing freshwater and saltwater and?
No, not at all.
Is it
In
different
fact-
between a riverfront and a pond and,
I've been
Or
doing that for a
shoreline.
long time. I
Oh,
find
okay.
it fascinating. I love it. And being in Mattapoisett for last year has been great because I've gotten a lot more experience with coastal resources, which I've always wanted.
yes, I saw Mattapoisett and I said, yep.
Yeah. And obviously, feel free to call Town Hall and talk to whoever you want.
Okay, questions? Kwame, do you have any?
This is a lot of good stuff in here, you know, and,
Sure, I'm forgetting something.
yeah, the last page. I think it'll be great to have more information of what's going on in projects so we can use that. So I guess my question would be, do you have any experience with docks or anything?
Yes, we've been doing a lot of docks in Mattapoisett, yes. So
Approving or denying them?
they've been approving them.
Well, a
You're in
little
a
bit
different
different in
town.
Wareham.
You're in a different town.
I take my direction from the commission.
Okay.
Yeah, that's-
I've worked under a number of chair people as well with different personalities and ideas about things, and I take my direction from the chair and the rest of the commission.
Kwame, anything else?
I don't really have anything else. Thank you.
Denise?
I wish I would have gotten this before we came to the meeting. I would have been a little bit better prepared.
Yeah, well, this has been blitzkrieg speed, because it's only like in the last week that Ken, I think it's been less than a week that
I
Ken
think
contacted me.
my concerns would be with the paperwork, the filing, the working in conjunction with our lawyer, because we get hit. If we approve something, somebody's upset and tries to get it changed, goes to court. If we don't approve something, and a lot of different things are with our lawyer. Do you work in conjunction with him, providing him with information and input?
I should point out that this is standard practice with the Planning Board and the Zoning Board of Appeals. Under the 53G, we have professionals that work with us and work with those boards and commissions, and
So he will be working directly with the lawyer,
if it calls for it, that's part of the process.
providing information and stuff for him.
That's
How do
fine.
your, what happens, like you have fees
Yeah.
for filing and stuff like that. We have filing fees. So what happens? Do these people get hit twice with fees, or how does the fees work now?
What happens when they make the application, the fee schedule is pulled out, and whatever the project is, a certain amount of money that's involved with the review of that project is paid as well. Like an RDA, I think it's 450 plus.
Yeah, but are they his fees or are they our fees? Is
They're-
it per our schedule or per his schedule?
They would be my fees, yes.
So it would be per his schedule, so our schedule doesn't come into play at all anymore?
It's in addition to.
In addition to,
In
that's right.
addition to our
Right.
fees?
So
are
if
his
someone
fees?
comes in for an RDA, it's our 75 plus 450?
Correct,
Because we don't have an agent,
correct.
because we're using an outside contractor.
Correct.
Right,
But
so
but the flip
so-
side,
So your fees then go into a certain account, and then what happens to our fees? Where does that go?
That goes into the general fund.
Into our fund?
No, the town's general fund.
well, it should go into your Wetlands Protection Act fund.
Right.
Don't think so.
We should talk about that.
Yeah, I think we need to see where the
The-
fees are going.
Here's the flip side of that, right? So it's like a user fee. You only pay if you need the service. You would normally be paying a conservation agent X dollars a year. I cost the town and the tax base and the taxpayer $0 per year. Nothing comes out of the town's general fund for my services. It's entirely paid by the people who need the service.
And
I
what
think-
happens now to our enforcement
I
end of this whole thing?
Yeah, so I guess the question is, if we get a call saying somebody is doing something, they're building a pier, they're building a seawall,
Yeah. Ask the
We
town of
must-
Mattapoisett, I'm on it.
so it would be a contacting Mr. Buckland who contacts you and some, or one of your team goes out there and takes a look at the violation.
Correct, and we report back to the commission.
I find we seem to be, in my opinion, a little lacking in our enforcement. I don't see things coming before us and getting taken care of as readily as I think they
Well, if it
could be.
there is, you go out and you have an enforcement order, you stop work.
Right.
Cease and
So that
desist, I have a
happened,
standard form for that.
Yep.
So, take into example, the example of Sandy, where we put the stop order for the trees that were coming down in the wetland.
And we've seen nothing since then.
Correct. Why? Would he do anything different for us in terms of that? Or does he do anything in terms of that? Or
So
we-
we have stopped work, and we've approved the enforcement order, and it goes nowhere. We have a list of enforcement orders that we have approved going back for several pages, for several years, and never had someone come before us with an RDA or an NOI to resolve the destruction of the wetland. I guess that's what you're referring to, is that what steps would you take to follow up on our offenders?
Let me ask this question, do you have the ability to fine under the bylaw?
Yes,
Then, with most people, the only way to get them to listen is to hit them in the pocketbook.
Unfortunately, our pocketbook that we're allowed to get into isn't that large. I think our area would be more beneficial if we could get into restoration of the areas that they've.
Well, you can, that's how you compel it.
see,
Correct.
they
And
have to come
we have-
before
This
us.
has not been happening. Nobody's been coming.
So if
home.
someone is a recidivist recalcitrant and just isn't listening, you have two choices. You can either make a recommendation, a referral to DEP to have them take it over, or you can start issuing fines. All right, that usually gets their attention. The thing about fines is that once you compel restoration or an after-fact NOI, whatever it may be, The commission, and I got to check the way the bylaw is written, but most standard bylaws are written in a way that allows for fines to be vacated should the commission decide to do so. But you have to write tickets. Do you have tickets?
Yes.
They have to be written daily and filed with the district court at least once per week. So that's a lot of work. But it does compel compliance. In Sutton, we have someone who has, they let the fines get up to $54,000 before they finally started to listen. So I have another court date at the end of December, and I am just hoping, upon hope, that this person is finally going to do all the restoration they want, because then the court magistrate is going to go through the roof if not.
Because I think once in 30 years, if we had a continuous daily fine for a project, it tends to be a fine in restoration.
Right. Well, nobody likes to fine. That should be like the last resort. The object is to get compliance.
Yes.
That's the object. Some people just don't like to listen, though, and those are the people you have to take it to the next level.
And we just came back from the magistrate for a condition that's been ongoing for over 2 years, and most of the time, the offender has not attended our meetings when we were talking about his restoration, and it finally went to court. He either had to resolve it within 3 weeks or pay the $2,500 that had been accumulated in fines. It got resolved in the 3 weeks.
Like I said, people...
That was the toughest one we've had. That was the first time I've been to court, and I've been in this position for 12 years.
Yeah. It doesn't happen very often, but when it does, it can be intense, and I do have that experience.
So then it is my understanding then that you handle and will be handling.
Yes, I do.
Enforcement, and not just enforcement that comes up from here forward, but additionally the enforcement that we have in
Correct.
addressing.
I do everything related to Wetlands Protection Act work.
Okay, so that's the enforcement orders.
Except engineering and land surveying. That I don't do. I don't do things like, I don't review HydroCAD calculations, because I'm not a professional engineer. I'm not qualified to even speak on that, but...
That's all right, we have an engineer that does that.
Right, but I do like the basics of the stormwater checklist review. You know, things like read it and try to make it an opinion on which standards are applicable, because sometimes engineers try to downplay which standards are applicable. One thing that always happens is they come in with infiltration rates for their stormwater infiltration practice, but it's based on a general hydrologic soil group that they are basing off of a soil survey, when really what they should be doing, and they're required to do, is do actual test holes and jump in the hole and do an analysis in the spot where the infiltration practice is required. And again, I have soil science background, so I know how to find a water table and figure out what the soil texture is, so I can figure out what the Rawls rate is, that is the infiltration rate, that kind of thing.
Okay, so you would be working for us, with us,
Correct.
in addition to what other towns?
Sutton in Massachusetts, Sutton and Mattapoisett, rather.
And Mattapoisett. So
Yeah.
we're sharing you with 2 other towns then,
Yeah, but I think is I have the staff.
who have staff.
I have the staff. It's not
So
just
we wouldn't have to worry
me.
about paperwork and filing and,
Well, this is that's what I want to talk to you
Paperwork that we
about.
have to do, we have to handle the money.
okay, well, who
We
would
have
be?
to process it, and we have to do it the same way we do the 53G accounts now.
Okay.
The money comes in, we have an account set up that's earmarked for the project, and we pay it
Who would be
out.
handling that now that Dave's not here?
It's my office that handles it.
You're getting stuck with that now.
That's right.
I think my only fear would be, we go into this thinking it's a temporary kind of thing. Are you looking to do this instead of us ever getting an agent? I think that would be my fear, that you would say that we're doing this, so we don't really need an agent anymore.
Well,
Wondering if
we have some good candidates for agents right now, and I don't think there'll be a problem getting an agent, as a matter of fact, at this point.
Okay.
It's just going to be timing to get an agent in. But it is something to consider as to whether or not we'd like to have it. Essentially, this is privatization of
Right.
the action, of the support to the commission.
It's like 401K. Used to be everybody had a pension. And then 401K got put in somewhere in an obscure spot in the tax code, and it wasn't for 10 years that somebody actually started using it. And then over the next 30 years, before you know it, everyone's on a 401K, and no one has a pension anymore. It's kind of like continuing services contracts with, agent position with towns. That's how I see it. I see, private firms like myself that really have a high level of expertise and ability to go above and beyond doing this kind of job. It doesn't work in every case. Larger towns with high volumes and like writing of grants, things like that, probably maybe not a good fit. Smaller towns like Wareham, Mattapoisett, Sutton, we're doing something like 40 notices of intent a year. In Mattapoisett, between RDAs, certificates of compliance, NOIs, and ANRADs, we've done 109 so far this year, and not once have I missed a deadline. All right, so we have the ability.
Also, I did a lot of one-on-one with Mr. Pichette, showing up at his office and trying to get an understanding, because I've only been doing this for a year.
Right. That I can't
Not be
promise,
there.
but we do have Zoom now, which helps a lot, and I am absolutely willing to do one-on-ones.
Okay. All right, thank
That's
you.
kind of,
Michael?
Denise kind of beat me to it here. This is a couple, no, this is a lot to go through really
It is a lot to
quickly.
go through and to consider.
No, she beat me to the enforcement. And your staff, would they be here in town, or would they be in a separate office? You have to contact them, I guess?
yeah, we
where are you
wouldn't be
located?
here at Town Hall.
All right.
We would be in our private office
In Warwick, Rhode Island?
in Warwick,
Warwick?
yes.
All right.
Yeah.
That would give me an excuse to visit my son.
Oh, if we have any,
What is that?
so if we have any issues, we contact Mr. Buckland and he contacts you?
Yeah, sure. Or you contact me
you-
directly if you have the time.
That's what I would like to know.
Text me, email, call me. Like I said,
I just don't know what type of relationship or the fee schedule is for hours of
Well,
support.
one of the things that I'd like to control is the number of people that contact him, because that adds up in number of hours, and it adds to the cost of the review.
Correct. I think we need to go through one channel. And
That's your call, what chain of command you desire.
Okay. Carol, any questions?
Would this be, if we decided to go with this for now, because we don't know if we're going to get a qualified applicant,
Yeah.
is this more or less like a per diem thing at this point?
At this point, yeah.
Okay.
I mean, I will fill in for however long you need it under this particular system that I'm proposing. And then if you decide that you either don't like the way I do things, or you're ready to hire someone in-house, then that's the way it goes. But if you decide that, hey, this isn't a bad system, maybe we'll have them stick around a little more, then we'll keep on going and think about it, talk about it at the future point.
So, right, so it wouldn't be a contractual obligation for a set period of time?
Correct.
At this time, it would just be as needed, which is right now every 2 weeks, we have
Yes.
meetings. Okay.
I would review applications that come in, enforcement orders, certificate of compliance requests, take your phone calls, Zoom calls, whatever you need, and on a as-needed basis. And if you decide that you don't need those services anymore, then that's it.
And who makes that decision, Mr. Buckland?
Mr. Sullivan?
Yeah, it'll be a decision by the town administrator.
Whether we stick with this gentleman or we hire a,
At this point right now, we're going to be hiring an agent.
okay.
But I'm having trouble with some of the hiring that we're going through right now, and I can't be sure that I'm going to be able to find somebody that's qualified.
Nicole, any questions?
So when you get something in front of you and
Your
then you go do
microphone
your
is
site
low.
visit,
Pull your mic down.
Microphone.
We need to-
So when you do your site visit and then you make notes of your findings, you would send all of that to us, or would it go to one person and then they send it to you?
Dealer's choice, however you want to do it.
I think it goes
It's
directly, that's fine.
Historically, those notes are presented to us at our conservation meeting when we have our hearings. We do get the plans ahead of time, the RDAs and NOIs ahead of time, so we can read the document, print out it, so we have that, but we don't have field notes until we arrive at the meeting, our hearings. Is that what you're asking?
Yes, is that something that we could get ahead of time? I think it would be useful.
We may not get the field notes until the day. It depends on who does what for their
I'm sure we could ask
timeframe.
to have it done beforehand and see how fast Brandon could get it done.
I mean, if we're not getting it until the meeting
Yeah.
at this point, any sooner would be better. I mean,
I was listening to the field notes tonight, and it just sounds like it's a property description, then a project description, and it's not terribly in-depth.
It's enough to give us an idea. This is the site, this is what I saw, this is my recommendation.
Okay.
So so it goes into the minutes saying this is coastal, this is a dune, this is
Yeah, name the resource areas and project and the performance
DAE.
standards, how it may impact, how does it comply with the WPA 310 CMR 10 and the local bylaw.
And recommendations are important to us, but we don't always listen to them.
Yeah, well, my opinion on it, I try not to give too many opinions, because my position would be as the servant to the commission, right? So my job would be to give context to the site, the project, the science behind it, and the law, tee it up for all of you, so you can make an informed decision, and you can hit it whatever way you want.
Okay.
Would someone from your company, either you or one of your others, be at every conservation meeting?
Yes,
Okay,
as we always do.
okay.
Jessica, anything else, Nicole?
Nope.
Jessica?
So I'm not very familiar with 4453G. So,
You haven't had need to, because
well,
you've had
I
David.
apologize if these are simple questions that are like contained within the statute, but in a situation like that where, you know, we would be shifting from a process where that cost is absorbed by the town to a scenario where we're shifting cost to the applicant or consumer, how have you seen pushback in towns where that change has happened, or are you seeing
Yes.
a willingness?
Yes, it's a big change really fast.
Yeah.
And anytime you change really fast, there's always pushback.
And how have towns addressed that?
By wait and see how it goes. And thus far, I haven't had too much pushback. The chairman of the Board of Health in Mattapoisett was probably the most skeptical person. But he watched it, and over the period of the year, he actually started saying how much he liked that particular kind of system. He says it works very well.
Has that pushback been significant enough to be a deterrent for people to actually utilize the process and go through the application?
As opposed to doing
just
something on a weekend and not being seen.
Well, I just mean it doubles, you know, the cost of actually doing business.
I find that that's not the case.
Okay.
When people become weekend warriors is when they become afraid of the Conservation Commission, that you can't talk to them,
Okay.
or they're so strict or unreasonable, or they have that perception anyway, that they just try to do it on the sly. And that's what I try to help prevent by being open and easily accessible and someone you can talk to.
Does your fee cover the life of the file, like from the filing all the way through, even if it includes an appeal, or are there additional costs that get incurred later on if it goes past a normal hearing and determination?
Good question. I read the Wareham bylaw. I read the section that you have on 53G that was accepted by the town in 2002. And it's written into it that it's only applicable through the issuance of an order or a determination, and not through a certificate of compliance. Even if that was a case, adjudicatory case or an appeal, is never covered under 53G.
So does that mean in a situation where someone asks for a certificate of compliance, how is that process, how is that part of the process handled fee-wise?
I've been doing it pro bono for Mattapoisett, for example.
Okay.
I find that the fees that I collect through the order or determination is what's the word for it? It's the opportunity cost is good enough for me to follow through when, like, say, a certificate of compliance is issued. I don't have a problem with that. I keep track of my pro bono hours, but I generally don't charge for them.
Enforcement orders that it would be for things you have, that would predate you, how would you, what is your fee structure for getting involved in things like that?
Enforcement order, there's no fee. But if there ends up being an after-the-fact notice of intent, RDA, which very often that's what the commission requires, it's often written right into the order conditions that you must file NOI by such and such date, at which point they would then have to file. What I have to be careful of as the consultant is not to be seen as being what's called self-dealing. So the commission has to make those kinds of choices. One interesting thing that Mattapoisett does that I didn't even know was legal, but they do it, and I guess no one's ever complained, is they have a separate application that's called the Request for Site Inspection Report. Usually you just file an RDA if you need to know, what you need to do, but they have one that's it takes care of you before that. Like, do I even need to file an RDA? So you basically, you pay $50, and someone from the Conservation Commission will go out there and look at things and make that determination. Do you even need to file an RDA? I can't do that because, just think about it. Somebody say, well, Brand's going out there. He's going to tell everybody they need to do the biggest and most expensive NOI that there comes. So that's self-dealing. I have to stay away from that.
One of the things we've done is given our conservation agent a permission to take a look at tree work being done by the wetlands. So an RDA might not be needed if he goes out there and says, yes, the tree is damaged.
Oh, yes,
And
good point.
I approve that removal, so he's been given that authority to approve that type of work as opposed to coming in front of us for an RDA to take down a...
Okay, so you don't even require a licensed arborist to give an assessment?
That was part of Mr. Pachette's project. We'd go out there, and like anything else, I have a pine tree, let me knock on it. If it's hollow, I know it's full of ants.
I would need to know is which of your scenic roads, so I don't run amiss of the tree warden, or if you have a tree council.
We don't have.
No?
No
Okay.
scenic roads.
Well, let me rewrite
I
from my
just-
proposed conservation schedule, and this is also from Mattapoisett. Fees are not required for exempt projects, or when the only purpose is to cut down dangerous trees anywhere, or when a shed is proposed in land subject to coastal storm flowage only, and not within a resource area or buffer zone. So, in Sutton, you have to file an RDA if you need to cut down a dangerous tree in a jurisdictional area. So the modus operandi is to hire a certified arborist, and honestly, I don't even know why, because every arborist you'll ever meet will go up to any tree and they say, oh my goodness, look, that thing's about to fall down. You need to hire me to cut it down.
I mean,
And so why do we even bother? But that's the procedure.
we've given him that authority
Yeah.
to go out there, and it doesn't take much to say, oh, there's no leaves left on those branches, and it's the middle of July, there's something wrong.
Right, but
Or
can you
it's
see
leaning-
heart rot?
Or it's leaning over and
Right,
you can see the holes,
Right.
I mean, so,
It's listing towards the house. In
and it's
Sutton,
lean-
they had a tree fall on a house this year. And they have 5 great ponds in town. And one of the things they try to do is prevent people from clear cutting all the way down to the water so they can have that water view.
we have an issue with vista pruning. And every
Oh,
time
it is,
we've
yeah.
found vista pruning, we have insisted on full restoration. But we have to be told that someone's doing it because we don't have enough eyeballs out there to see it ourselves. But
That's what
we're
neighbors are
very-
for.
Yes. But we have done some major restoration projects. Oh, I want to see the waves wash up from Buzzards Bay, so I'm clearing everything down the hill. Next thing you know, full restoration of the whole hill.
I have one last question, sorry. Where you have the applicant paying the fee, is there any conflict, and maybe this is covered in the statute, but who is your client? Is
The
it,
town of Wareham is my client.
okay,
When the checks are made out with the application, it's made out to the town of Wareham, not Ecosystem Solutions.
It's put into an account that's set aside for 53G projects, and we pay it out from that account.
okay,
Which we
We get an
currently,
invoice and we pay it directly from that account.
okay.
Right, and then once the permit is issued, any remaining funds get refunded to the applicant.
Okay.
And I encourage you to call Town of Mattapoisett or Sutton for some context.
So is there a general consensus that this sounds like a reasonable thing to try before we get an agent in place?
I think we have no choice. We
I
need
agree.
the support.
We can't function
Yeah,
without it.
absolutely. I think information that it could be provided is going to help us.
But I don't want you
that's
to
my
stop
feeling as
looking for
well.
I just don't think you should stop looking for an agent, though.
Right.
No, we're actively interviewing.
Now,
I'm just
Ken,
concerned
tomorrow,
about actually getting somebody to say yes.
Okay.
tomorrow at noon time is the deadline for hearings for December 7th. Have you gotten any?
Yeah, we have.
Okay. So the ad to the newspaper will be going out Thursday afternoon,
That's correct,
and we'll get copied on it?
as usual.
And then we'll get copied on the plans, the RDAs and the NOI documents. I just want to make sure it happens as usual.
Well, I think you should come in and help me out on this.
I'm sorry I said anything.
See, that's one thing I want to point out, though, is we're not doing that kind of ministerial work. We're doing more of the technical
Right.
The
review.
follow-up, the filling of the documentation after the hearing and the approval. Will you do the RDAs
Oh, yeah.
and the order of
The
conditions?
order of conditions, yes.
Yes, so that is the paperwork you'll
That's the
finish.
paperwork, yeah, right, it's technical paperwork, yes.
So his staff does the beginning,
Right, you
we do the middle, and you do the end.
right.
Okay. Anything else?
I know I'm not voting, but can I participate in this conversation in that?
Have been.
Okay, thank you. I think this is a great idea, especially given the science background that you have. You know, for me personally, it's helpful to have somebody who can really give us more technical information than we might have readily available. I do want us to be sensitive to any pushback from applicants due to cost, but I like the idea.
I feel the same, and I'm interested to see your fact sheet that you provide. I think that could be very helpful for our records for, like you said,
A fact sheet.
or I forget what you called it.
Summary.
Oh, the
facts.
findings of fact.
Yeah, that's what I was
Right.
talking about.
Okay.
I'm interested to see that, and also the field notes that we typically get from Dave. From what you've said, it seems like yours might have a little more detail of,
I'm going to see what, I'm going to get more into it, see what Dave has done, but I'll, obviously I'll do my best to give you as much insight as possible before the meeting.
We have a critical hearing coming up on December 7th. We have a
Harbor Day,
home
yes.
being built down on a coastal dune, on the marshland. What else was on it? And Dave's made a recommendation that the applicant is not too pleased with, so their attorney is coming back on the 7th. So if in fact he is brought on board, it is critical that he looks at that property and all the notes prior to a hearing on the 7th.
Okay. I'll contact the attorney and see if they'll pony up the 53G money to hire Brandon and.
If the hearing hasn't been closed, you can ask for it.
It has not been clear, it has not been closed.
Yeah, then you can ask for it.
I know that it just
It
depends
is-
on whether they'll pay for it.
It is a very sensitive location. It had a foundation washed away in one of the storms, and now they're looking to build in the same similar location. And I've never had a coastal dune impact a project before. I've only been here 12 years,
Well,
so,
there's performance standards for coastal dune
Yep.
and marshland, and
Yep.
it involves migration of sand.
That was the big one.
It involves wildlife habitat, so the project cannot impede the natural progress of sand on a dune.
that is what Mr. Bichette has said in his statement on his field notes.
Right,
that
and the
his is
commission has
concerned.
to take it all into account and decide their level of comfort with the project, and will it impede those functions, values, and the performance standards associated.
I can just see them, oh, it's got sand in my under the house, so I guess I'm gonna sweep it out.
Yeah, and as my first piece of advice, don't talk too much about other projects unless the hearing's open.
Thank you. I didn't say specifics. But that is, I would like to have a little bit more support for that particular hearing.
Okay, well, and like I said, I tell you like it is.
Okay,
I'm gonna tell you like it is, whether you like it or not.
thank you.
Thank you.
Are we done?
Can we use that as a free test bed? How it works, and if we like it, then we keep on going, right, Ken?
That's right. Why not?
Well, one time,
We'll test it out.
yeah.
Well, if there's nothing else. Are you taking any audience questions? No. Thank you. Because this was not on the agenda. This was just a point of, that's right,
It's
it
something we
wasn't on
needed
the
because-
agenda.
It was something we needed because we're stuck without an agent right now.
So we didn't have a 48-hour rule. Okay, if everybody is done, I think I need a,
Motion to close,
Were we going to talk a little bit about hybrid
About what?
about what?
Hybrid meetings,
meetings?
I think it'd be a good idea, since it's something the town meeting had asked for.
We looked
know it's not on
into-
here.
Okay, we looked into hybrid meetings a couple of months ago. The problem is WCTC does not have personnel to come to our meetings. That's our problem.
Yeah, there was, the personnel was involved in a meeting over in Town Hall in room 27 tonight at this time as well, too, so.
Right,
that's
there's
a
nobody
conflict.
available to do the meeting for us. We can do it, we just don't have, WCTC TV does not have the personnel to cover our meeting.
we already have one. A hybrid would require a second one
Correct,
to manage the Zoom,
the Zoom part of it.
while Mr. White does the recording for the television. So that means 2 staff here in order to do a hybrid. Okay.
We would love a hybrid.
We'll see if we can make it happen sometime soon.
Okay. All right,
So we move to close our hearing, is that what we're doing?
No, adjourn the meeting.
Adjourn our meeting, what are we doing? Are we going home finally?
I have a motion to adjourn the meeting, and the
Second.
time is, at second, and the time is 8:10. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed, abstained, thank you.
Thank you for your time.